The following is a Shaw TV Public Affairs presentation. Constituency Report is produced as a public service by members of the BC Legislature through the facilities of Shaw TV.
Hello and welcome to Constituency Report. I'm Tracy Grimsrud. Very pleased to welcome Jordan Sturdy back to the studio today. He is MLA for West Vancouver, Sea to Sky. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you, Tracy.
Great to have you here. And I thought we'd start off by taking a look at your very large riding. It's very unique. Tell us a bit about the geography and the diverse businesses and industries that are a part of it.
It is. It was actually changed in this last election to be a little bit bigger. So it actually runs on the east side from Harrison Lake all the way up through the Lillooet River Valley up to the Duffy Lake Road, up to Darcy and Anderson Lake, the Hurley River Road, the Pemberton Valley, and then down, including the Sea to Sky corridor, as well as the Squamish Valley corridor, and the Ilaho all the way down to Squamish, Whistler, Pemberton, Lions Bay, West Vancouver, Horseshoe Bay, out to Cypress Bowl on 29th Street. So it's about 14,000 square kilometers, and it has dozens of different communities of interest, from the resource sector, obviously tourism, retail, technology, energy, transports, academia in the way of a university. It's a very diverse riding.
Some of the communities within that riding have been seeing a lot of growth lately. How have you been working to help them manage that?
Well, it's true. You know, the Sea to Sky really has been changed significantly over probably the last 7 or 8 years, ever since the Olympics, when the Sea to Sky Highway was upgraded. And it's a world-class highway. It's an amazing drive. People love to visit it and to visit the whole corridor. But that improved access has really changed the dynamic, changed how people feel about getting there. It's a very quick drive to Squamish. So, for example, if you're in Vancouver and you think to yourself, well, where do I want to live? I work in Vancouver. I can go an hour east and be in Surrey, Aldergrove, Agassiz, or I could go an hour west and be in Squamish on the ocean, in the mountains, by Whistler. So it really has changed people's thoughts about what the corridor is like, how easy it is to get to, and that has really driven people to not just visit but also live there. So our challenge is really understanding how we can develop economic opportunities, develop job opportunities that limit the need to go to the city, that limit the need to drive to Vancouver for a job. So looking for opportunities to create better quality jobs, to diversify some of those opportunities that are there, to recognize that seasonality is certainly part of many of the industries that we have in the Sea to Sky, tourism, not the least of which, the other one I forgot to mention, agriculture, which is where I come from. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. But I'm looking for year-round employment opportunities. So I'm looking for value add to some of the resources that we already have, and trying to limit the need to travel as much as we do.
The UBC School of Community and Regional Planning, or SCARP, is assisting with modeling for the Sea to Sky with respect to recreation planning. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
That's an interesting process, and a great organization that is helping to model some of the capacity issues that we have in the Sea to Sky, working with forest lands and natural resource operations and rural development in getting a better handle on how much is enough? How much can we handle? There's, especially on the recreation side, you think about there's rafting and there's skiing and there's backcountry hiking and there's mountain biking, which the whole Sea to Sky is really becoming a mecca for mountain biking.
Right.
There's hunting, there's flying, there's just so many demands on the land base, snowmobiling, just camping in general, being out there. Mm-hmm. So at times, and it's a constrained area, big valleys, limited road bases, mm-hmm. and we can get to a point where we have people on top of one another, where we have tenures butting up against each other and overlapping, where we have conflicts between different recreation users. So trying to understand how better to assess what makes sense where and how much is too much. I think we've all seen and heard about something like the Joffrey Lakes up on Highway 99 up on the Duffy Lake Road. And mm-hmm. this is a really interesting piece. This is a wonderful area, not far from where I live actually, and it's a place that I have visited for decades, and it's a magnificent spot, a provincial park. Mm-hmm. Well, the Park Service improved the trail and to make it a little more accessible. And it gets you to 3 lakes up to a big ice fall. It's an amazing spot.
Right.
Now here am I doing exactly what I'm talking about. I'm advertising it. And this is what happened. We improved the trail. It goes on Twitter, a little bit of Facebook, an Instagram post or two. And all of a sudden we're going from 30 or 40 people a day, 10 or 20 cars, to literally hundreds of cars. We're talking, I think, at the big days, 600 cars.
Wow.
We're talking about looking at trail counters, which are recognizing that I think we've seen as many as 2,500 people on that trail in a single day.
Wow.
So clearly, that's too much in some respects. Mm-hmm. The question is, how do you manage that? How do you look at parking, for example? You build a parking lot for 1,000 cars? Well, I don't think so. That degrades people's experience, mm-hmm. and its impact on the landscape is really significant. So this is the challenge that we're facing in the whole Sea to Sky, and it's a microcosm of all of British Columbia. Mm-hmm. How do we manage people's impact on the landscape? How do we manage people's experience, because we want both people who are visiting as well as people who live there. We want to maintain that quality of the experience, maintain the quality of our air and of our water, of the diversity of our wildlife. And I'm not saying I have any easy answers, but this is something that we've been working on for a number of years, and the work that Flynn Rowe is doing and with the assistance of SCARP and others, I think is a very important piece in helping us get it right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know we've spoken about this next issue before. Is there any update with regards to the Cumulative Effects Assessment Framework tool?
It is an ongoing process, and frankly, there's not really an end to the Cumulative Effects Assessment Framework. It provides us with an opportunity to follow certain value components and ensure that the trends of those value components are moving in the right direction. And in the case of the How Sound Cumulative Effects Assessment Framework, it's grizzly bears, marbled murrelet, Roosevelt elk, various water qualities and air qualities, old growth management areas, old growth polygons, and a variety of other value components. And this is it's a tool that'll give us a baseline, because as pressures come on the region, not the least of which is something like the District of Squamish expecting to double in population over the course of the next 15 to 20 years. Well, that clearly puts pressures on the land base as well as the marine base. So understanding the trends of value components which give you an indication of the direction of the environment is a much better tool than looking at individual decisions on a case-by-case basis and trying to put them into context. So this will give us some baseline, and hopefully we'll be able to add citizen science, we'll be able to add the Ocean Research Institute information and various layers that will help us get a much better picture of where we are in order to know where we're going.
I understand there's a proposal for a biosphere reserve in the riding. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, that's a very interesting proposal. It's something that's been around for a couple of years now. I think overall, well, globally, I think it's about 700 different biosphere reserves around the world. So this is not exactly new. We've got about 20 of them, I think, in Canada, but the proposal's relatively new. It's come forward through conversations that have taken place with the Howe Sound Community Forum, and some individuals have got together and are proposing that we consider a biosphere reserve for Howe Sound. It's an interesting process. It talks about protected areas as a core areas, and then transition areas, and then multi-use areas. And it's a way of looking at things in a ecosystem-based management approach, so that you're again, it ties in with the cumulative effects model, in that you're looking at the system as a whole, and ensuring that its natural functions work well as its social and economic functions. It all needs to work together, because, as you know, people seem to be at the heart of things, and this is and we're making decisions that are going to affect the place we live and what's in it for a long time to come.
With regards to parks, what's the latest on the Student Park Ranger program?
Well, this is a great program. It's rolling out this year for the first year. It's something that we had in the works for a number of years to develop, to bring youth students into the park system, to give them work experience, job opportunities, but also to put more boots on the ground, as it were, to have more activity, to be trail building, to be helping maintain the parks and maintain the infrastructure in the parks, and to really put more faces out there, more people to talk to, and heck, it's certainly something I highly recommend. There's to spend the summer working in and around a park in British Columbia is a great opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
So it's open to students, I think from 18 to 30 in secondary or post-secondary. And but there's certainly, for our riding, there's some postings, I think, for North Vancouver, but more likely Squamish is there'll be a student ranger program out of Squamish. Entirely what they're going to be doing in Squamish, couldn't say right now, but I think it's worth putting forward an application and getting involved, because I think you'd have a great summer.
Oh, definitely. All right, well, we're going to take a short break. I know we have a lot to talk about, transportation and infrastructure, budget and so forth, but we'll take that break. We'll put up contact information for MLA Jordan Sturdy. Back to chat much more with him right after this. Welcome back to Constituency Report as we continue our discussion today with Jordan Sturdy, MLA for West Vancouver, Sea to Sky. Should mention your other role as well. You serve as the BC Liberal critic for transportation and infrastructure. Any thoughts you want to share on the course the NDP has been taking with regards to transportation and infrastructure?
Well, it has certainly been an active file. A number of different things have manifest themselves over the last little while, not the least of which is the taking over quite a number of bridges that were not in the provincial inventory in the past. The Patella Bridge, the Golden Ears Bridge, and the Port Mann Bridge. Yep. Yes, there we go. And the Port Mann was covered by tolls in terms of the capital cost to pay for the bridge. Golden Ears was covered by tolls as well, and then Patella does need a replacement, and that was managed by TransLink, as was Golden Ears. So the province has determined that they feel the best course of action was to bring these all into provincial inventory, which has an effect of essentially bringing about $6 billion worth of debt into the province, which was not there in the past. So this is, I don't think something that I don't know how well conceived it was, frankly. But the otherwise, number of different impacts around the province. BC Ferries as well has been something that has been impacted, and there'll be a bit of a budget shortfall for BC Ferries, and so that remains to be seen how that will play out over the course of the next year or two as provincial contributions have gone up, and yet there still seems to be a bit of a gap. So this is something we'll be following with interest. And then obviously the Massey Tunnel was canceled in terms of the replacement. You can see that project was well on its way to being in construction. The preload was in place, and frankly, that's a pretty disappointing initiative to cancel the resolution of the biggest most intense piece of congestion in the province of British Columbia. Interestingly, it was the bids that were out there came in well below estimates, almost $1 billion below what was estimated to be the cost. And I don't think there's any question as time goes on we will see a resolution to this, but I challenge you to keep an eye on it and see if the $1.6 billion, which was estimated to be the cost, or was a bid that came in the last summer, whether that number, when they do get around to replacing that piece of infrastructure, whether it's even remotely near the $1.6 billion. I'll be very surprised.
We'll keep our eye on that for sure. As far as regional transit is concerned, any updates you can give as far as governance and funding for the 2019 fiscal year are concerned?
Well, regional transit is an initiative that we've been working on in the Sea to Sky for years. Well over a decade I've been working on it. And we've had the province of British Columbia last year committed to funding the provincial share of regional transit service, and the current government has decided to stick with that commitment, which is great. Certainly very important that we connect Mount Currie, Pemberton, Whistler, Squamish with Vancouver. So the trick right now is to come up with a governance structure and an equivalent, I suppose, to TransLink for the Sea to Sky. Right. And that means that I'm imagining that we're going to see members of that board, of that regional transit board, that will reflect local government in the area. So membership from Squamish, Whistler, Pemberton, the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, and likely the First Nations. And so they're in the process of putting forward a proposal on that governance structure. I know it seems like a bit of a boring subject, but if we think about how TransLink has been in the news over the course of the last years, and then we think that we're going to replace or we're going to replicate that in the Sea to Sky, it's clear that you've got to get it right. It's important because this is one of the main decision-making bodies with regard to regional transit. Right. Then the other part of it, obviously, that is a concern to everybody is how does that get paid for? As I said, half or the province is committed to their share of the funding. Generally speaking, it's about 49% the province covers, 51% local government covers, but local government also benefits from the fare box. So the more money that is driven through pardon the pun, through the operations of the transit service, that money comes off the municipal share. So, but on a big regional transit service where you've got quite significant distances between communities, local taxpayers are challenged by even covering that, say, 40% or so of the cost. So there's a request out there to look at other models, look at something like's done in the Capital Regional District where there's a fuel tax or levy that it goes towards the municipal share. The minister didn't express an interest in that particularly. The province has also declared that the carbon tax will no longer be revenue neutral, which it has been for the last decade or so, which means that any carbon tax collected goes back to taxpayers in the form of tax reductions. So, but that won't be the case any longer. So there's a possibility that there'll be access to carbon tax funds for regional transit, although that has yet to be determined. And then local government and myself working with them will do our best to make sure that any regional transit service that's put in place in the Sea to Sky is affordable to the people who use it.
And cycling is very popular in the area, and I know one of your priorities is to keep working on the Britannia Hill northbound climb. What's the situation there? Well,
with cycling, it's certainly a increasingly popular activity in the whole Sea to Sky. I mentioned earlier mountain biking, which is probably bigger, but certainly in many ways, respects, at least as visible is road cycling. We've got a number of big events. The Grand Fondo runs every summer, I think in August, from Stanley Park through over the bridge, up the Sea to Sky Highway, all the way to Whistler. Fantastic ride. And really one of the best opportunities to ride that highway in a controlled setting. So really exciting. The use Ironman is another event that has a road cycling component to it. And then you'll see people training and just riding for pleasure constantly, one end of the corridor to the other. So one of the real challenging spots on the Sea to Sky and we have made some significant improvements to quite a few spots, including Porto, where there's now a set of lights. So as a cyclist goes by, the cyclist can activate a set of amber lights which warns people on a very narrow curve where there's a rock bluff, there's the road base, very small shoulders, and then a railway line. So it's curved, so it's very tight. So that's something that we did a couple of years ago. So that's a good piece of infrastructure. But just north of that, coming out of Britannia Beach and up the Britannia Hill, we got about half of that done to put a reasonable size shoulder. It's a tight spot. People there's a passing lane there, so there's people definitely trying to get to the top of that hill quickly. And it is a situation that needs attention from the province to complete that particular piece of cycling infrastructure on the Sea to Sky. So we'll continue to keep pressure on the ministry to get that one accomplished this summer.
Definitely. Just a few minutes left in the show.
Can I add one more thing? Yes. Sorry. Just that I saw them out there the other day sweeping. So they're beginning sweeping. So when it comes to cycling, that is a key milestone every year is
Yeah.
when is that gravel going to get moved off the highway, and so they're out there beginning. So start tuning up your bikes.
Excellent. That's good news for sure. We only have a few minutes left in the show, and there was one project in particular I know you really wanted to highlight, and the woman behind it, the Centrepoint project, and the great work of Lois Wynn with Sea to Sky Community Services. And I want to mention the recent award she got, the BC Community Social Services Award for Excellence in the Legend category. Tell us why Lois is so legendary.
Well, Lois is definitely a legend, yes. Lois has been involved in Sea to Sky Community Services for over 30 years. She's brought that organization from a tiny little organization on a shoestring of $45,000 or so up to multiple millions of dollars. She's developed an incredible array with all her colleagues, obviously, and the people that work with her, because it's never about one person. But Lois has clearly been a driver here and has brought to completion the Centrepoint project this last summer, where she now has located all of Sea to Sky Community Services, or the majority of their initiatives, in one location where they were spread out before. Built working with the United Church in Squamish, built a number of pieces of affordable housing in conjunction with BC Housing, and really has done a fantastic job with all the people that she has worked with, and that strong organization that works throughout the Sea to Sky. And I really can't say enough good things about Lois. So I think she was she is truly a legend, and that is a great recognition for her. And I have to congratulate her on that. I will miss her when she goes.
Definitely. A couple minutes left. I just wanted to quickly touch on the NDP's recent budget, a tax and spend agenda. Your thoughts on that?
Well, there's no question about it. It is a tax and spend agenda. We haven't seen a lot of work on the business side or on the economy side. It's more about how do we spend money. But I think it is important to recognize right now that the couple of those taxes that have been put in place, obviously the employer's health tax is something that is affecting businesses throughout the corridor. I've received quite a bit of correspondence about that, but and this is a replacement for the MSP, but it's really focused on only certain businesses, and it has, I don't think there's any question it's going to have an impact on job creation in the corridor. But the other issues that are in conversation right now is certainly the issue of the speculation tax, which is not really a speculation tax. It's more a tax on assets. So if you're not using that property, if it's not occupied all the time, then a certain amount of that, the value of that property will be clawed back to government every year. And then the foreign buyers tax. And the reason I mention them is just that Squamish and Whistler are both outside of the catchment. And there's a dialogue right now about whether that makes sense or not. So I encourage you, if you have thoughts on this, to get a hold of my office, to get a hold of me. Let me know what you're thinking about it.
Perfect. And of course, you can do that by checking out his website, jordansturdy.mla.ca. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much. And thank you for watching Constituency Report.